The CONCACAF Nations League is back this March, where the US men's national team will face Panama in the semifinals and Mexico or Canada in the final, as long as we beat Panama, which we should. Up to date, this will be Mauricio Pochettino's most important roster. Now, he will be dealing with some adversities as the US men's national team is currently dealing with some pretty bad injuries. So, using his past few rosters, interviews, cutting the players that are not available, and using the greatest AI technology ever created by man, my brain, we will be trying to predict Mauricio Pochettino's roster that should be out within the next 7 to 10 days. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today, we're going to be doing a US men's national team March camp roster prediction video. So listen, he can bring as many players as he wants, but since he can only register 23, I'm going to assume that it's going to be a 23-man roster. This is also a FIFA international window, so players from Major League Soccer and Europe will be available to get called in as long as Pochettino wants to bring them in. So you know how Pochettino said that it doesn't really matter where the players play? Don't really listen to what he says. Let's see what he does. This roster will help us understand a lot more how he rates certain players and the leagues where they play. I also used the 60-man preliminary roster that was released last week to help me predict a 23-man roster. I mean, it at least helps me confirm the absent players due to injury. And Justin Moran broke it down on X by position, and you know, that helped me quite a bit. It saved me a lot of time, so make sure you guys give him a follow. I think he deserved at least a shout out. Now make sure to drop a like in this video to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you very much. I know you just did hit the like button. Yeah, with that said, I got nothing else to add. We're gonna go straight to the prediction. Actually, no. I forgot. Rent is due. So before we start, a quick 60-second ad from the sponsor of this video. While the ad is playing, make sure to drop a like, and let's start the video within a minute. And thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring the channel. Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. So for that reason, we are partnering up once again with BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be extremely hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. But when it's online, you can get a therapist from anywhere in the country, sometimes even anywhere in the world. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it is online. It's remote. And by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist as little as in a few days. And if the therapist that they match you with is not the right fit for you, they will replace him or her for another therapist with no additional cost. You may sign up and register now with the link that I placed on the description of this video, which is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. That is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. Yes, we used Tactical Manager TV. That link will also give you 10% off on your first month, and in the process, you'll be helping the channel avoid bankruptcy. So once again, thank you, BetterHelp. Okay, 23-man roster. Hopefully you survived the ad. Why don't we start with the goalkeepers? And I believe Pochettino will bring 3 goalkeepers. But before we go through the goalkeepers I think he will bring, let's go through the ones that made it to the preliminary roster because those are the only ones that could be there. So for the provisional roster, we had Matt Turner, Diego Cochin, Matt Freese from New York City FC, Patrick Schulte from the Columbus Crew, Zach Steffen from the Colorado Rapids, Drake Callender from Inter Miami. I believe he was benched at Inter Miami, and then Ethan Horvath from Cardiff City. And Diego Cochin obviously plays for Barcelona B, and Matt Turner is a backup for Crystal Palace. So with those names, what's my prediction? And I'm just going to cut right to it. I think Matt Turner is a lock, and I also think Diego Cochin is a lock. But Diego Cochin is an interesting one because I think he's a lock to be in the roster. He's also a lock to not play. It looks like Pochettino keeps bringing him into camp due to potential. So I think Diego Cochin will be the third goalkeeper. The second goalkeeper, because Matt Turner is a starter, will likely be Patrick Schulte. And understand that if Schulte doesn't go, it's more or less between Zach Steffen or Ethan Horvath. Most likely Zach Steffen, in my opinion. During the January camp, he started Schulte in the first game, and then he started Zach Steffen in the second one. I think he's going to go Turner, Schulte, and Cochin, but if Schulte doesn't go, it's probably Zach Steffen. Regardless, I only expect one goalkeeper to play, and that'll be Matt Turner. Okay, next up are the fullbacks, and you may be wondering, how many fullbacks will he bring? Will it be 2? Will it be 3? Will it be 4? Will it be 5? And the answer to that is we don't know, obviously, but if I had a guess, I would say he will only bring 2 actual fullbacks. Let me explain by going by the provisional list, and then I'll tell you who I think will make the roster. So the provisional roster had Joe Scally, Marlon Fossey, right, that plays in Belgium, Shaquille Moore. How is Shaquille Moore still making, and even a provisional roster? He's got some dirt on someone in US soccer. There's no way, but Shaquille Moore made the 60-man provisional roster. Nathan Harrio, Anthony Robinson, Dejuan Jones, John Tolkien, that's actually injured at the time of this recording, so John Tolkien likely won't be available regardless, and Max Arfsten, that plays for the Columbus Crew, but I also have seen him play as a winger, but I guess he can play also as a fullback. So essentially, we don't have Serginho Dest, that's injured, Richie Ledesma, that is probably not good enough or just going to go play for Mexico, Christopher Lund didn't make the 60-man roster, and unfortunately, we also did not have the German-American Nathaniel Brown. He's not in the provisional roster, so he will not make it to the March camp. So as I said, I think Pochettino will only bring 2 fullbacks, and they will be Anthony Robinson from Fulham and Joe Scally from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Yes, just 2 fullbacks. In November, he brought 25 players in the roster, and only 2 of them were fullbacks, the 2 that I just listed, due to lack of options. But keep in mind, later in the video, we're going to list some midfielders, wingers, and even center backs that can play fullback better than the other options that we had in the provisional roster. So once you move so far into your depth chart and the drop-off is so big, you might have to improvise a player because he'll be better than players in their natural position. So yes, I think he'll just bring 2 fullbacks, A-Rob and Scally. That's it. When Dest is back, we'll probably have 3, and then if we do recruit Nathaniel Brown at some point, he'll probably be the backup left back to A-Rob. But expect only 2 for this camp. Next up, we have the center backs, and I think he's going to bring 5 of them. Since we're only going to have 2 fullbacks, he's going to overcompensate by bringing 5 center backs and probably 7 midfielders. Let's go through the provisional center back list first. In it, we had Chris Richards from Crystal Palace, Mark McKenzie from Toulouse, Austin Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers from Celtic, Noah Kai Banks that plays for Augsburg, the young American ball-playing defender, good prospect, he's only 18. Tim Ream from Charlotte FC, even though he has been playing as a left back for Charlotte in MLS. Jackson Reagan from the Seattle Sounders, actually quite technical center back right there. Walker Zimmerman from Nashville, Miles Robinson from Cincinnati, George Campbell, and Maximilian Dietz. So my prediction of the 5 center backs that he will bring will be Tim Ream from Charlotte FC, that can also be a left back option if needed. Chris Richards from Crystal Palace, Mark McKenzie from Toulouse, Cameron Carter-Vickers from Celtic. He was in the previous roster in November, but he got injured, so I think he'll make it this time. And Austin Trusty, also from Celtic. Now, if one of those 5 is injured, it's more or less between Miles Robinson and Noah Kai Banks. So most likely, if one of those are injured, it'll be Miles Robinson. Because he's been in camp before with Pochettino, he has played. But I wouldn't be surprised if Pochettino brought in Noah Kai Banks instead of Robinson, projecting into the future. He's a much more talented center back, and, you know, he might be better than Robinson right now. He most certainly will be better than Robinson 12 to 16 months from now when we get to the World Cup. And out of these center backs that I mentioned, in my opinion, the 2 that should absolutely start is Chris Richards with Mark McKenzie, okay? Tim Ream should not be starting unless you need to throw him as a wide defending left back. But the 2 center backs should be Richards and McKenzie, and they've been in great form for their clubs lately. For Crystal Palace with Chris Richards and Toulouse with Mark McKenzie. Keep in mind, Toulouse is, statistically speaking, the second best defense in France, and Mark McKenzie is their best or second best center back right now. All right, so that's it for the center backs. Next up, we have the midfielders, and I think he's going to bring 7 midfielders. Now look, I'm going to go through the provisional roster as well of midfielders that he called up, or at least that were in the list, but I'm not going to go through all of them. There are some names that there is actually no chance that they'll make to this roster. No disrespect to these players. I'm not going to be mentioning them. I'm just going to go through the players in the provisional roster that have a legitimate chance of making this one. And they are Weston McKennie from Juventus, Tyler Adams from Bournemouth, Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis, Brendan Aronson from Leeds, Gio Reyna from Borussia Dortmund, Paxton Aronson from Utrecht, Tanner Tessman from Lyon, Gianluca Busio from Venezia, Matko Miljevic that plays in Argentina. Yes, there is a chance that he will make it. Aiden Morris, and Diego Luna. Diego Luna plays obviously in MLS, in Major League Soccer for RSL. As I said, once again, no disrespect to the ones in the provisional roster that didn't make it to this list that I just mentioned. I just don't think they really have a realistic shot in making it to the 23-man roster. And obviously Malik Tillman is not available due to injury. With that said, what's my prediction of the 7 players that Pochettino will bring? The 7 midfielders. And if you made it this far in the video, drop a like right now if you haven't already. And let me know what you think of my prediction, if it makes sense, if you agree with me, disagree with me. Again, this is not my roster. I'm trying to think with Pochettino's head. Okay, so there are actually 4 midfielders that, in my opinion, are locks with Pochettino's roster right now. They are Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie, and Brendan Aronson, based on previous rosters. With that said, there are 3 more players for us to list here out of the 7. And before you go crazy here saying, you didn't mention Yunus Musa on the midfielders in the provisional roster, and he was there. He has only played as a winger for Pochettino. So I'm going to mention Musa on the winger section. I'm fully aware that he can play in the midfield, and Milan has actually been utilizing him on the midfield. But again, Pochettino has only played Musa as a right winger. So that's why I will be listing him as a winger, okay? All right, so we determined that Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie, and Brendan Aronson are locks. Who will be the other 3? And this is my guess. I think he's going to bring Miljevic. He seems to be one of Pochettino's favorites. It doesn't matter whether or not I agree with it. I think he will be there. Gio Reyna, despite the meh performances for Dortmund and lack of minutes at times, I think Gio will be there, and in my opinion, Gio Reyna should 100% be there. He'll probably end up being like the American James Rodriguez, where he sucks for club, but just balls out for country. And then the 7th midfielder, I think he's going to bring Tanner Tessman. Okay, there is one name that I forgot to list in the provisional roster, and his name is Paxton Aronson, and he does actually have a shot on making this roster. I just don't think he will make it because his best position is the 10. And for the 10 position right there, we have plenty of options, right? Brendan Aronson can play a pressing 10. Gio Reyna can play the 10. Miljevic, which is one of Pochettino's favorites, can play the 10. Honestly, Weston McKennie has played the 10 for Juventus. He can do that as well. For that reason, I don't think Paxton Aronson will make this roster. Also, he doesn't really play well when he plays on the wing for Utrecht. I think Paxton deserves a shot. I just don't think he'll make it this roster. Busio has been struggling with Venezia lately, so I don't think there will be a spot for him as well. I also think Tanner Tessman is just better than Aiden Morris, in that Pochettino rates him higher. Plus, Tessman has been playing more and more for Lyon. I think he'll be there. Miljevic, I already talked about him. He's one of Pochettino's favorites. And you might be asking, what about big balls Diego Luna? I don't think he'll make it. I doubt it unless we have a few injuries. So just to recap, the 7 midfielders will be Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie, Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna, Matko Miljevic, and Tanner Tessman. All right, now we're going to go to the wingers, and I believe Pochettino will bring 4 wingers. And obviously, I already, mentioned one of them, Yunus Musa, but let's talk about a few names that we saw in the provisional roster. So obviously, we saw Musa, Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Alejandro Zendejas from Club America, Cade Cowell from Chivas. I don't think Cade Cowell will make the roster. Griffin Yao that plays in Belgium. I also don't think Griffin Yao will make the roster. Cole Campbell that plays for Borussia Dortmund's B team. I don't think Cole Campbell will make it. And Haji Wright was actually left out because he literally just came back from injury. So Haji was not in the provisional roster, which means he won't make it to the main roster. Now we could also include Paxton Aronson as a winger, but I already mentioned him in the midfield section. I don't think he's seen as a winger. I don't think Paxton is a winger. So if he doesn't make it through the midfield, he probably won't be here. With that said, there are players in the midfield section that can play as wingers. Like Gio Reyna can play as a winger. Brendan Aronson can play as a winger. Honestly, even Weston McKennie, if you want him to play as like a right midfielder or even left midfielder, he can do the job. But what are or who are the 4 wingers that Pochettino will bring. And honestly, with the options available and Haji Wright being out injured, I think the 4 are pretty easy. Christian Pulisic from Milan will be there. Tim Weah from Juventus, he will be there. Yunus Musa will be there. Even though I know he can play as a central midfielder, I think he'll be a winger option for Pochettino once again. And I think Alejandro Zendejas will be the 4th winger. He's in form for Club America, and also, who else? I don't really see another option. So Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Yunus Musa, and Alejandro Zendejas should make this roster. Last but not least, we have the center forwards, and I believe he's going to bring 2 of them. Let's quickly go through the provisional roster of the center forwards that he listed there, because that'll at least let us know who's available and who's not. Okay, so Pepe and Balogun, they would likely be locks, but they're both injured and they're out of the provisional roster. So these are the players that he listed. Josh Sargent is one of them. Damian Downs, the German-American that plays in the 2nd Bundesliga. Patrick Aguiman that plays for Charlotte FC. Brendan Vasquez from Austin FC. Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders, Jesus Ferreira from the Seattle Sounders, and Brian White, the USMNT January Camp Cupcake legend. He also made it. So let's be real. We can cut right away Jordan Morris, Jesus Ferreira, and White. They're not going to be there. So it's essentially Sargent, Damian Downs, Aguiman, and Brendan Vasquez fighting for 2 spots. And I know many people are going to say we need to bring Damian Downs. I don't watch the second division in Germany, so I haven't watched him more than just like highlights. He looks like a very talented player. I just don't think he's going to make this roster. If I'm being completely honest, I think the players that will be there will be Josh Sargent and Brendan Vasquez. Those will be the 2 options, Sargent and Vasquez. I think it's pretty obvious. If they're healthy, those are the ones that will be there. And it does reach a point where you go so deep into your depth chart that you might as well just play maybe Tim Weah there, or switch to a front 2 and just put like Weah and Pulisic up top. Regardless, as I said, I'm going to repeat myself for the 200th time. The 2 center forwards that I fully expect to see there are Josh Sargent from Norwich and Brendan Vasquez from Austin FC. And remember, I'm recording this on Monday, March 3rd. So if anyone that I mentioned in this video got injured, it's not my fault, okay? And I can't know about it before it happens. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. The roster should be out next week. And obviously, once it's out, we're going to do a stream. We're going to cover it. We're going to cover the entire March camp, which is going to be big. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. And I look forward to it very much. I mean, we haven't had much to talk about in regards to the U.S. men's national team. So it kind of feels good that we're going to have actual competitive games with our A team coming up later this month. Now, I want to thank you all very much for watching and have a great day.